Good afternoon. I'm Carrie Otto. I'd like to welcome all of you to My Life, My Story. We haven't had this for a little while, and so we're really looking forward to our presentation today. First of all, I'd like to ask you to turn off any cell phones you might have brought with you, so we don't have that problem. And I'm going to turn it over to Barbara Pottle. Now, Barbara has a very interesting story, inasmuch as she's been everywhere. Well, not quite, but she's come close, and so she does have an interesting story, and she knew how to have fun and have funny things happen along the way. So I turn it over to you, Barbara.
Okay, is my microphone on now? Is the microphone on? Okay. Uh, I want to thank everybody for coming. Wow. I also want to thank Carrie Otto and Don Gill for helping me put this together. They did a wonderful job with helping me. Um, I want to dedicate this to my parents and to my husband who gave me this wonderful, interesting life that I have had. My name is Barbara Baker Pottle, and I'm 89 years old, which I can't believe. And here I am. Um, I was born and raised in Quincy, Illinois. Uh, on the Mississippi River, a town of about 50,000 people. Um, and uh, excuse me, I've never done this before, so you'll have to excuse me. Uh, I The town was about 50,000 people and a really nice town to grow up in. It was very German and had been started by a bunch of Germans, and it had almost every corner had a bar when I was growing up, and if not a bar, it had a grocery store, which was close to everybody's house. You just walked to the grocery store. We, my folks did not have a lot of money, and so we walked and bussed everywhere. But when I was in about the sixth grade, they bought a car and a house, and we kind of settled down. So I'm going to sit down for the rest of my story because I don't know how long I can stand up. I Excuse me a moment while I gather my thoughts here. So sorry. Let me see here. Oh, I wanted to tell you about Quincy. Quincy had a whole bunch of very fancy homes. Where is my microphone? I've got hearing aids and I'll just hold it there. I've got I have hearing aids and glasses, and this thing is the third thing behind my ear, so it doesn't want to stay there. Um, Quincy, Illinois had a whole bunch of really fancy homes. Carrie, you can go through them. I have three slides. This was our post office, which was done after a mansion in New York City somewhere. It may have been the Carnegie Mansion, I'm not sure. And then this was our library, which I spent a lot of time when I was in school. And next slide, Carrie. These are more of the fancy homes. And I just learned not too long ago that one of the homes was owned by a mafia guy from Chicago. And actually, they think Al Capone had been down to see him. The rest of the fancy homes, I don't really know who owned them. We had a castle on the hill there that somebody built for their wife long ago. It was a Moorish castle, very, very interesting inside, very Moorish. Okay. Okay, what? This was the house that Bill grew up in. Darn this thing. This is the house that Bill grew up in. I think his room was in the cupola, but I'm not sure. If not, his room was right below it. Uh, my house was, Bill's house was built by a one of the owners of the brewery in Quincy. My house was built by a sea captain that worked on the Mississippi River on the boats, and it was quite old when my folks bought it. It's called a shotgun house because each room is just after the other one, and you can shoot a gun straight through it. I have two wonderful boys who are taking care of me now, and they do a really good job. They come and see me quite often, and it's really nice when they come. I did forget to mention that we came here to Royal Oaks, Bill and I, in January of 19, and Bill passed away in May of 22. Anyway, this is about 1956. I met Bill, and we eventually got engaged. He volunteered for the draft to get his obligation over, and so eventually he was sent to Fort Richardson in Anchorage, Alaska. And he asked me to come up there and marry him. And of course, my mother came unglued. But being a very stubborn person, I went anyway. And so I went as far as I could go on the train on land because I was afraid to fly. And then I caught a plane in Seattle to Anchorage. And that was a 6-hour flight back at that time on the prop planes. And guess what? Bill was not there to meet me when I arrived. And the story I heard was that this airline was famous for being late, and he was counting on the plane being late. So he had his friend call the airport and see when it was due in, and they told his friend it was already landed. So anyway, and I just added our first two cars there because I put trains, planes, and automobiles. And so we were married in Anchorage. He was still in the Army, and we were married in the Lutheran church. He lined up everything for the wedding: the church, the flowers, the uh, the cook at the base made the cake, and two of his friends stood up for us, and a bunch of his friends had a little party for us afterwards. These are a couple of pictures of Anchorage. The first one is kind of like it was when we arrived, and the second one is a beautiful picture of Anchorage from the Cook Inlet. And here's a map that shows where Anchorage is. Anchorage is at the end of Cook Inlet, and two arms go off. Turnagain Arm goes one way, and Kinnick Arm goes the other way. In in On March 27th, 1964, which happened to be Good Friday, and it was snowing lightly, we had an earthquake, which was a really strong one, measured out to 9.2, and it lasted almost 5 minutes. Bill was at work. He was working for the Anchorage Times as controller at the time, and I was at home with the boys, and I left the house with the little one, and my older boy would not come out because he was watching a TV show. And he finally came to the door. I could see him, and actually that's where we should have been, in the doorway. But my younger son and I were outside, and the ground was like waves. We were down 1 minute and up the next, and 5 minutes of that was pretty scary because that seems like a long, long time when you're in it. I have a picture of what Bill came out of the. What, take it back. Thank you. Bill was in the Anchorage Times, and he was on the second floor, and he was the first one out of there when the chandeliers started falling. And he tells me he went spread eagle on the road, uh, and Penny's whole side of their building fell down, and it happened to fall on the car of a friend of ours. Oh, actually, he was worked at the Times also, and he had gotten out of the car and was inside Penny's, but it crushed his car. This one in the left corner is a whole block that went down. Just the whole block went down. I don't remember how many feet. And the other one is Turnagain, where the land all broke up like that. And there were some houses on that land that broke up also. And a young boy and his brother are the only ones that lost their life in that area, which is surprising. Uh, anyway, there are a lot of aftershocks, which are scary also. And so I guess that's all I really have on the earthquake. Most of the people that were killed were on the docks in Seward and Valdez, and they had the tsunami come. We were on a creek, and they came and ran us out of there because they were afraid the tsunami had come up the creek. So we went out to the university, Methodist University, for a couple of nights and stayed in their rec room or whatever it was. Okay, these are the pictures of Anchorage. This is a view from Anchorage, a beautiful sunset, and that is mountain or whatever you'd call it is called the Sleeping Lady. She's lying on her side. Uh, okay, I think we're done with that. Okay, we did a lot of fishing and tenting and with the boys when they were little. The little one there fell in a creek, uh, and we used to walk from the road towards the mouth of the creek, uh, and so we would walk a ways in on the creek and shaking a can with rocks in it to keep the bears away, hopefully. And then the little one fell in the creek, kind of a little eddy backwater, because a tree had fallen in, and Bill had climbed up on that tree trunk and was fishing, and I noticed the little one was in the water, and so I stepped into the water. It didn't look very deep, but of course it was deeper than it looked, but I still didn't get my head in the water, and I grabbed his shirt and was pulling him towards shore when all of a sudden Bill dived in from the tree, and he ended up hitting his chest on a sunken another tree, and he was out of wind for a while, very scary. And that left only my older son, who was about 6, on land, and he claims he helped me out and the little one out of water, and I guess Bill got out by himself because I didn't. Some of that's gone from my memory. And this is the tent with the salmon. The next picture is called Combat Fishing at the mouth of the Russian River where it flows into the Kenai. And at the time we first started fishing, you could fish with a 3-prong hook and just throw it out and snag the salmon and bring them in. But they changed it to fly fishing later. But the reason for that is the salmon don't bite, and because they just have one thing in mind, and they're going up to where they were born and spawn. so they aren't hungry. They don't bite. And the fly fishing for salmon is an art. Uh, you have to throw the fly in, and that is only one hook, and you kind of float it around and pull it. And my son's really good at it. But what you do is you irritate that salmon to where he snaps at it at the hook and gets caught. Anyway, okay. Oh, this is 3 stories that happened in Alaska. After the boys were gone, Bill and I moved to a different house, and these 3 things happened in this house. Um, One day we were getting ready to go to work, and I was upstairs, and Bill was down in the kitchen making his coffee. I can't, this thing's a mess. Anyway, I heard this really loud crash of glass, and I went downstairs, and Bill was kind of in shock down there, and he thought the hutch in the dining room had fallen over, and so he went and looked in the dining room, and what he saw was a flutter of wings. He didn't see the whole bird, but there was a great big hole in our window there. I mean, it was pretty big, and so we we boarded it up with cardboard and went on to work. And people at work told us that the only thing, oh, the bird was not in the house at that time. And people at work told us that the only thing that would have known to fly back out the hole was an owl. And I finally later found some little white with black feathers. I had a plant in the window, and it was almost a tree. It had grown fairly tall, and I think he was trying to land in my plant. Uh, the squirrel, of course, fell down the chimney, and we knew something was in there, and we thought it was a squirrel. And I called I called numerous people, chimney sweepers, animal people. No, but everybody was afraid to do anything. They were afraid of the squirrel. And so Bill went to, I think, Home Depot or Lowe's and asked around what we could do. And somebody said, well, get a wide rope and drop it down there, and maybe he'll come up. So Bill got the rope, got on the chimney, got by the chimney, dropped the rope down, and I pounded on the flue, and there comes a squirrel. He was black as the ace of spades from the soot. Okay, the bug. Same house. One day we came home from work, and a bug that looked kind of like that was on the sliding glass door, and so we inside. We did not know where it come from or why it was in there, but anyway, I think Bill killed it. I'm not sure whether he killed it or took it outside. And so the next night we came home, same thing. Another bug on the window. And third night, and finally on that third night, I saw something flying from the fireplace. And what had happened is we had a little niche in the fireplace area where you store wood. And apparently these were hatching. They had been laid, somebody had laid their eggs in those wooden tree parts, and these bugs were hatching at one a day. Anyway, that's the story about the bugs. Okay, we did a lot of watching sports. The boys tried everything, and the Randy's junior hockey team uh, went to California to the regionals and won there, and they got to go to the nationals, and which was in Minnesota, up near the border. I can't think of the name of the town, near the border of Canada. And of course, they didn't win the nationals. I think Detroit did. But what happened is the groups he played with uh, were the boys that got to win the Olympics. They were about his same age. Okay, next slide. These are some pictures of things you might see in Alaska. There's a very smart moose crossing at the crossing. There's Denali, which was called Mount McKinley when we went up there. There's Aurora Borealis. And the sundog, most people don't know what that is. The middle thing is the sun, and the two on the side are reflections. It happens when the ice crystals are in the air and it's very cold. And I have seen more than one on each side, but that's kind of rare. And I guess they call them sundogs because dogs are protecting the sun. And the other is a whale's tail coming up out of the water. Uh, we bought a cabin on a lake 60 miles from Anchorage, and we had a lot of people over and had cookouts, and there I am cooking the salmon. And we had a couple of sailboats and a power boat and a dinghy, and we learned to sail up there. And the one on the left with the spinnaker is a boat that Bill built from a kit. We okay? Okay. Uh, which turned out we had a lot of fun. It was about a 15-foot. The little yellow one was only 12 feet, and it was like a bathtub. And then we bought a pontoon boat, handmade by somebody, to show people around the lake. And the one on the left of it is a salmon feed with friends there. Okay, we had a friend who went sailing, bareboat sailing, and bareboat means you sail without a captain. And he went to the Bahamas, to Abaco and Marsh Harbor, and sailed. You sail in the center there from a little island to island out of Marsh Harbor, which is on the big island. And uh, yeah, and it's just like a bathtub there. I think that whole thing is 20 feet deep. And of course, I found a beach. Am I causing that? I found a beach I really liked there. It was beautiful. Done? Anyway, there's Bill sailing, and that's. Well, let's move on. Uh, Anyway, Bill was just fascinated with sailing. The fact that a wind would move a boat instead of a noisy motor really fascinated him. Our son, our younger son in college, did a semester at the University of London, and while he was there, he traveled all over Europe, and he came back and said, Europe is just like a big Disneyland. You guys need to go. So this was our first trip. We hurried and got a flight, and it was in the summer, and the next year, and we got a flight that went to Brussels, and so we got a Eurail pass for a month, and we got on the train in Brussels, and this little town of Bruges is just so neat. We got off the train there to see what it was like, and I just fell in love with it. It's just a really neat little town. And of course, there's the Acropolis, and that was just really exciting for me to see in Greece. And that church there is called St. Oswald's. And my grandmother, who came to America when she was 9, was born in the St. Oswald's Church parish. And that church was built in 1100 and something. Quite old when we went to see it. Okay, on this, on that Euro Pass thing, we ended up in Greece, but we didn't take the boat there. We flew over, and we were on the square, Syntagma Square in Athens, and this guy approached us. He opened his coat and says, "You want to buy a last-minute trip on a cruise?" So Bill says, "Well, take me to your leader," which meant Bill wanted to make sure he was. So he took us to his firm, which was a legitimate travel agency, and so we bought the tickets. It was a 3 day, 3 night trip and 4 islands. And the first day we went to Mykonos, and the second day we went to Santorini, which that is a picture of, and they put us on a donkey and took us up this switchback. My donkey stumbled a little bit. The donkeys had a guy leading them, and so we got up there, and it's a beautiful, beautiful view from up there. And when we were going, you had to walk down because if your donkey stumbled, you'd go out into nowhere. So we walked down. Oh, well, that's okay. We walked down, and Bill says, "We're walking down. Donkeys are coming up." Donkeys were walking down. It was actually 100 degrees in Greece when we were there, and there's donkey dung all over these steps. So anyway, this is Bill. It was his New York with his salesman jacket on. I thought that was kind of funny. And a couple pictures of his beautiful office he had in Anchorage, which overlooked the inlet and Denali. He and about 3 or 4 other agents actually uh, uh, grew that office really nicely. Okay. Okay. When he retired, we decided to move to Pinehurst, North Carolina. And when he said that, I said, "What's Pinehurst?" And he said, "Well, it's a golf. It's golf, all about golf. You can play golf all year long." So off we went, sold the house, and we actually drove out of Anchorage in January of 1994. And it was 40 below the first 3 nights, and we had to plug our car in. And we took about 30 days to get to Pinehurst because we stopped and visited family and friends along the way. And so this is Pinehurst, the historic hotel, which is called the Carolina. And then there's the clubhouse and the golf shop. And this is the big putting green in front of there. And this is the tribute memorial to Payne Stewart, who was killed in his airplane. I actually saw that site there when he won there, the Open. Pinehurst is a village, and when you live in the village, you can belong to the club. And so we bought a lot in their newest number 7 course, and that had a little clubhouse of its own, and I just recently noticed it looks a lot like the clubhouse at Augusta. And this was our entrance and their label there. We lived there for 25 years, had a wonderful time. Bill built me a really nice home with a swimming pool in the backyard. I could just walk out and get in the pool. And this is me on the patio after a swim having a glass of wine. That far right one is our view of the golf course. We were on the 18th fairway, and there were two fairways, so we really didn't see anybody across the fairway. Speaking of golf courses, my youngest son became an attorney and went to work for a large firm in Atlanta, which happened to be the firm of Bobby Jones. And so you golfers probably know, some of you others may not, but we got to go to Augusta several times, not to the finals, but we went to about three of the practice rounds. And then we decided to go to the British Open one year, which was in England and at the Lytham St. Anne's. And so we went and we Bill played the old course in Scotland, which is on the bottom. I did not play. That course, you stand at the tee and you don't know where to hit the ball. You really need a caddy there. And we tried to see all the courses in Scotland, really neat clubhouses, and we saw Turnberry, which is really neat, and and couldn't Muirfield. We could not get on. That must be a private club, and so we could not get on Muirfield. Okay, this is one of our trips that went to. This is a tour. Well, I put pictures of the three tours. We went on three fantastic tours, and so this one was Bangkok, Singapore, and Hong Kong. And we flew to Bangkok and did some touring there and went to the floating markets and some other things. And then when we were leaving, they flew us down to Phuket and put us on this windjammer tall sailboat. Bill asked him if he could help sail it. And it took us through the Malacca Straits to Singapore, and actually when we got on, the captain said, watch out for pirates, and I don't know whether he meant it or not. Anyway, it went through the straits, and Malaysia's on one side and Indonesia's on the other, and it stopped at about three places on Malaysia, and this was in January, and they were all setting up for their Chinese New Year. Okay, this is our tour to Turkey, which really interesting tour. There's so much to see in Turkey, it's hard to believe. But I put up a few pictures. We went early and stayed in Old Town, and of course it was noisy because they call to worship fairly early. They get up in the towers there of the mosque and call their people to worship about 3 o'clock in the morning. And so then we got on the tour bus and went on over to the other side. Turkey's in two different continents. And we did kind of a circle tour of Turkey. And we, that top, that's Troy. And Troy was built over itself numerous times, and so that's supposed to show the various times it was built. And there's the bazaar, Grand Bazaar in Istanbul, and it was very annoying to me. It was great to see that fancy bazaar, but the merchants came out and they wanted to get you into their shops, so they wouldn't quit talking to you, and so they were kind of wouldn't I couldn't go in because they wouldn't quit talking anyway. And then on the tour we saw there's also something called Cappadocia, which I didn't put any pictures of. It's mounds of dirt or clay or something, uh, and you go in them and they go down into tunnels where people used to hide out when the bad people were coming. And then this last one is Ephesus, which I'm sure everybody's heard of, and that's its library. And I tried to put a picture on there of the marble street, which had the ruts in the marble from the chariots that went down it. And but the picture I tried to grab was wouldn't let me copy it. So that was really interesting. Turkey's very, very interesting. Turkey is self-sufficient. It was at this time. They grow all their own food, and their fruits and vegetables were fabulous. This is a tour that I only put pictures of Russia, but it started in London and went the Channel to Paris, and then went over to Bruges, and then up to Amsterdam, and then through Germany. And we actually stayed in a very nice hotel in East Germany, and I brought home a little piece of the wall. I don't know whether it was legal or not. I just put it in my suitcase. And we arrived. Let's see, Germany, Poland, went to Warsaw. Warsaw was interesting. Warsaw had tunnels under all the buildings in the square down in their downtown, their old downtown, and they they had pictures of the downtown square and the buildings. So after the war, it was demolished, Warsaw. And after the war, they got out those pictures and rebuilt Warsaw the way it used to be. Very, very interesting thing that they did there. And let's see, then we went to Poland. No, yes, it was Warsaw and Poland. And I went to Belarus, and I do not remember. We, I think, stopped at two towns there. And while in Belarus, we acquired a Russian. We had to have a Russian tourist guide, and so she got on the bus, and she said, "says I know you've come a ways in this bus, and you've stopped for lunch and various rest stops at very nice places." And she says, "but here we don't have those nice places to stop at, so we're going to make some bush stops." And so after we got on the bus, and first bush stop, we found out what she meant. We got out of the bus, and she says the men go in the bushes here, and the women go in the bushes on the right. So that was quite an experience. And anyway, we went on to Moscow, and and it was kind of late in the evening, or no, late in the afternoon, I guess. It was getting dark, and she put us on the underground, uh, uh, whatever you call, sorry. And we went to Red Square, and we came up out of the subway, and there was St. Basil's. Most beautiful, one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen, and I had really wanted to see it. So then we went to the hotel, and the hotel was a building that they called Wedding Cake. They built a lot of buildings they called Wedding Cake style, which are just like that. And anyway, we had the next day to ourselves, and so Bill and I decided to walk down to the fancy hotel called the Metropole. And if any of you read the book Gentleman in Moscow, that's the hotel he was at. And so we were going to have lunch there, which we quite often do. We go to the fancy hotel in a town we can't afford to stay at, so we have lunch or high tea or a snack. And so we were going to have lunch there, and we walked in, the most beautiful lobby I've ever seen, stained glass all over the place. And we sat down and looked at the menu, and we didn't know what to order. It was so expensive. So we paid $100 for a salad that we split. So anyway, when the tour left Russia, we went along a road that had some little buildings which they call dakas. And I can't remember for sure, but I think they're summer homes. They're just like a two room home. They're kind of very small. And so this one woman had let us in, and oh, I don't have a picture of a daca, so okay. Uh, Yep, go back a little bit more. Yeah, there we are. So she let us in and gave us some tea and showed us the place. It was done very nicely because her husband was a woodworker or something, and he had done it up kind of fancy outside. And what they used for insulation in those places was rugs. Hang a rug on the wall for insulation. It was interesting. Then we went on to the oldest town in Russia called Novgorod. And actually, there wasn't anything startling there that we saw. And then we went on to St. Petersburg, and we toured the Winter Palace, which is a museum. We toured the Summer Palace, which I couldn't find a good picture of, and it is beautiful and has many many fountains. Gill has been there. He says it's gorgeous, and it was gorgeous. Anyway, when we aren't done, but that's okay. I This tour went on to Finland, and I did not know you could drive from Russia to Finland. And anyway, it went to Finland. We stopped at the main town. It went to Sweden, stopped at the main town, and then we stopped in Copenhagen, and then we took a ferry back to London. That was a marvelous trip, which I will never forget. So next, okay, while we were in Pinehurst, we had our 50th wedding anniversary. So this is our whole family. They came, and this was in Pinehurst, and this was in our backyard, and in front of a pretty bush. And this is a, a photographer who my daughter-in-law hired as a gift for us, and he took a lot of pictures, but this is one of all of us. And we decided to all wear white shirts. Okay. Now we did some other fun things. We bought Bill a Rolls Royce on eBay. It was in St. Louis, so we went and got it to drive it back and found out that all the tires were ruined because it had been sitting in a garage for so long. And so on the way back, we had to buy 2 tires. And then when we got back, we bought the other 2 tires. What fun we had with that was our neighbors in the subdivision. We would take them to dinner, and I got Bill a chauffeur hat, and we would pick them up and take them in the rolls. And the other thing we did was so neat. We joined a Rolls-Royce regional club and went to a bunch of Rolls-Royce meets and got to see all the cars that people had. And I'm telling you, some of them were really interesting old cars. And we actually also got to go to a national meet in in Virginia, Williamsburg, and that was a lot of fun also. Uh, let's see, okay, that was my car uh, for the last, quite a few years. Uh, it was a used Jag, and I had seen a lady in a Jag with the license plate of Kit's cat. I thought that was really cute, and so I tried to think of some cute license plate to put on there, and there were quite a few different ones that were already taken. So I ended up with Catwoman, spelled with a K, and what happened was I would go somewhere and people would look at the plate and ask me, "Do you own a lot of cats?" And so I decided nobody really knew what a jaguar was, so I got rid of the plate, which cost extra money anyway. Uh, we also bought a motorhome and traveled the U.S. in the motorhome, and we've pretty much been all over the U.S. Not all of it was in the motorhome, and anyway, we had a lot of fun in the motorhome. Then we bought a sailboat. And the story about the sailboat is we bought the sailboat from a charter outfit down in the BVI's called Sunsail. It was British. And as an afterthought, I forgot to put it in there, but while we had the boat, we belonged to a British sailing yacht club. And we had the little card and everything. And when we traveled around the U.S., we used that at a bunch of sailing clubs or yacht clubs. Very, very neat yacht clubs. One in Chicago was really fancy. And anyway, we bought the sailboat, and the deal was you buy the sailboat from them, you pay for half of it, you give it, to them to lease to people that come to sail down there, and they pay the other half. And so then it's a 5.5 year uh, contract. And at the end of the contract, you can sell the sailboat for half the price. So you paid half, they paid half, and you got your half back when you sold it, which worked out for us. And it was 5.5 years, and during all those years, we could go and sail anywhere that they had a base. And they had bases all over the world. And so we had a lot of fun going to all the places to sail. And we did go to the BVI's numerous times because that's still my favorite place to sail. You can sail out of Tortola and where the base is and go to all the islands. They're all very interesting. And they all, of course, you can eat. They all have places to eat. And we you could take out the size of boat you took and the time of year depended on the credits you had with them. So we went at off times, and we got 40 to 44-foot boats when we went out. And let me get my notes here as to where we sailed. There's quite a few places. Sorry for the delay. Okay, we sailed the BVI's. We sailed out of Volos, Greece, to some islands out of that bay, and it's north of Greece, north of Athens, up there, and that was nice sailing. The water in that area off of Greece is clear as a bell. You can see all the way down and everything. We sailed in Antigua. We sailed in St. Martin, both sides. we sailed. Sorry, I can't see that well. Oh, we sailed in the Grenadines, and there's a really nice reef down there off of the small islands that you sail to. And we sailed around Corsica, which is a very interesting island. It has a cavern there that they play music in, and the acoustics are perfect. It was wonderful. And let's see, of course, in Majorca, we sailed around Majorca of Spain. And of course, we had to go to Tahiti and sail to Bora Bora. Anyway, that was really nice. And that's Bora Bora. And okay, next one. That's all, folks. I got a couple of PSs here that I forgot. We did some other traveling uh, by ourselves where we drove around Spain for 30 days. And we also drove for 9 weeks in France and Germany. And those were wonderful. We had wonderful travels. I just really, Bill was a very inquisitive person and liked to see and do everything. So,
Thank you, Barbara. Thank you so
Okay.
much. What a life.
I wanted to tell everybody,
Before you leave-
remember to live, love, and laugh a lot, because life is just a bowl of cherries.
Are there
Thank you
any
all for
questions,
coming. I've
any
got some books up
comments,
here if you
anything?
want, or of
Before
our
you
travels.
go, there are several picture books here that Barbara has set out of her travels. You're welcome to look them over. They're very interesting and well organized. Next week, we've got a bio buff coming up with Bob Hancock. He's going to talk about Teddy Roosevelt. I'm sure that'll be interesting. Bob will be a new presenter, and so I hope you can join us and hear what he has to say. And I thank you for coming, and thank you for holding the microphone, Fred. And thank you to our team back there, Don and Don. They do such a great job. Thank you. 50 minutes, just like you said.